Welcome to our Q1 webinar with the team driving innovation on Tezos. I'm Josh Frank, co-founder and CEO of The Tie, and today I'm excited to be joined by Arthur Brightman, co-founder of Tezos, Benedict Hermer, senior engineering manager at Trilitech, and Ben Elvidge, head of commercial applications at Trilitech. Today I'm excited to be exploring with the team the rapidly evolving real-world asset landscape with Uranium.io, fractionalizing uranium, allowing users to access real-world assets on Tezos, its significance for the Tezos ecosystem, and a glimpse into what's ahead for 2025. As a reminder, the information contained in this webinar is for informational purposes only and not intended as investment advice. So with that, excited to kick it off, and I'm going to start with you, a question for you, Arthur. We've previously discussed Tezos on prior webinars and its key differentiators, but it would really be great to hear from you all the major updates that happened in Tezos, maybe not all of them, but highlighting some of the major updates that happened for Tezos in 2024, and would really like to dive into Etherlink and the significance of Etherlink.
Well, just yesterday we had the activation of Quebec, which is the 17th upgrade on Tezos, and it happened without a hitch in just like a few seconds. We moved from one protocol to another, and yeah, we've had lots of upgrades over 2024. I would say one of the biggest change in Tezos over that period has been the introduction of staking. And to some people, that sounds a bit surprising because Tezos has been a proof of stake protocol for the longest time, but only block producers were staking. And by staking, I mean actually putting coins at risk and saying like, look, I'm staking this coin, and if I do something wrong, this coin will be taken away. There was staking and delegation, and so now there's like actual staking where users can stake their funds. So that's a new thing that started in June, and the network and the community and participants have been adapting to this over the past few months. We've also had lots of improvements, a reduction in the block times, and the block times are now only 8 seconds, which means you get finality on your blocks within just 16 seconds. Of course, if you're using rollup solution on top of Tezos, you'll get very, very fast transaction. But not only that, but it'll also be finalized very quickly, which is rare across networks. In particular, those networks who put out fast transaction speed oftentimes don't have very fast finality. And yeah, it's just like a lot of quality of life improvements. But of course, the evolution of the Tezos ecosystem is not just the layer 1, it's also the layer 2, and it's also a whole set of applications around it. So in terms of layer 2, we've seen the launch of Etherlink, which is a roll-up built on top of Tezos, and it's 100% EVM compatible. So it's a drop-in replacement anywhere you would use an EVM chain, such as Ethereum or Base or Polygon. You can now use Etherlink, which is built on top of Tezos and benefits from all that. It's also, as far as I know, the only decentralized rollup out there. So it doesn't rely on a multi-sig, it doesn't rely on a trapdoor or anything like that. It actually, implements what it says it does on the box, and it gives you very fast transactions, so sub-second confirmation of transactions, and a wide array of integration with traditional, the traditional EVM ecosystem, including layer 0, including the graph, and all sorts of tools.
So one of the big announcements that you guys just made was Uranium.io launching in December. Can you explain, let's start by, what Uranium.io is, why tokenize uranium? Would love to kind of hear that as well. And what that means broadly for the Tezos ecosystem.
Well, Uranium.io is a website where you can buy physical ownership of uranium just in your crypto wallet. So, go ahead and try it. Go to Uranium.io, and there it is. Why tokenize uranium? I think that a lot of real-world assets have been tokenized, haven't always had the best fit with the crypto audience for a few reasons, or for all audience in general. I think a lot of people looked at tokenization as a distribution channel. They said, oh, look, we have a bunch of people on a blockchain, they have lots of money. Surely they want to divest, this money that they got on like this crazy volatility, technologically oriented stuff on like more like traditional asset classes. And typically they do not. So I think as distribution channels, they're disappointed. They lower costs for issuers a little bit, but so that's nice. There's a real there, but it's not like this giant PMF. Uranium is super interesting. First of all, it's a hugely important commodity, especially that we're seeing a change of attitude toward nuclear. There's a lot more demand for nuclear. A lot more reactors are being built. Reactors that were decommissioned are being recommissioned. there's a tremendous demand of power that comes from the AI industry, which is spending trillions in data centers at the moment. So uranium is a huge theme. And despite being this globally important commodity that pretty much everyone has heard about, that is super exciting, that it's super important, that plays into, like energy transition thesis and AI thesis and so on and so forth, the only way you can buy uranium is, in $4.2 million lots. That's crazy. And there are some ETFs out there, but they're not really ETFs. They're kind of like, they're closed-end funds in some sense. Like they don't necessarily track the price of uranium. Like one of the most popular ones, Sprott, had like for months a 15% discount. So they were just like, there was no good product to trade one of the most important commodity, what I think is going to be one of the most important commodity in the next 10 years. That seems nuts. And, like doing it on a blockchain, like it gives you a lot of simplicity in going to market, and also like tapping into a global market. You could try to like build a financial product from one exchange, and then you wouldn't have this global reach. So you have a global reach for most countries for an asset that everyone has heard of, and like that's what we should be doing with tokenized assets, and not trying to tokenize stuff that's already widely available in other forms.
So does the team have to buy lots of $4.2 million worth of uranium for people to trade it? Is that how it works?
Well, the team didn't buy any, but the Tezos Foundation did buy a few millions of uranium. Actually, like I think made a profit on that because it bought at a good time. And then also we have some partners in there, like Curzon Uranium, which is a huge player in the uranium space. Put in, put a few millions in its balance sheet as well, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, we have a few parties who are in this market.
Wow, that's awesome. That's very cool. So, Benedict, a question to you. So, obviously there are a million and one chains out there now, right? That exist kind of in the market, and 1,000,001 options. Why do you think? Obviously, you guys spoke to the Uranium.io team. Why do they choose to build on Etherlink? Why do you think that was the best fit and the preferred blockchain for that team?
I think the first question was why put it on blockchain in the first place, and so what Uranium.io wanted to achieve or wants to achieve is like have that asset ownership verifiable on the blockchain. While the Tezos Foundation bought a certain amount of uranium and that is tokenized, having that verifiable ownership on the blockchain gives people the security that it is actually in their wallet, and that's what we wanted to build. And then I guess why Etherlink, Arthur already touched a little base on that, was the sub-second block times were super important. Having the soft confirmations in less than a second means like the user experience is just very, very high, and that just opens up the doors for many of these use cases. We also were looking for a blockchain that also supports like nearly free, as Etherlink says, like low fees, and that allows a high volume of transactions. On top of that, Arthur touched base on that in the beginning. The governance of the Tezos layer 1 actually helps Etherlink evolve in the future as well, and that governance model is informing the layer 2 as well. So these were the main three reasons why we chose to build Uranium.io on Etherlink.
So a question to you, Ben. Obviously, Arthur, represents the Tezos Foundation. You're at Trilitech. So can you talk a little bit about what Trilitech's kind of mission and role is within the Tezos ecosystem, and how you guys are able to support commercial applications like Uranium.io?
I'll unmute myself. Sure, happy to. Caveated, I'm a recent joiner, but was excited by the kind of Trilitech mission. So Trilitech's a research and development hub, which is based in London, and we're focused on building on Tezos and working within the Tezos ecosystem. So what we do is we work with developers, founders, and other partners to support and build applications and business models that can drive engagement, activity, and hopefully, given my role, commercial success as well. I think Uranium.io is the perfect example of this. it's a great showcase of what's possible when we can bring together an idea that's innovative along with excellent engineering capabilities, in this case led by Benedict and the team, with also kind of bringing to the fore some institutional grade partners like Arthur mentioned, Kurz and Uranium, like also partners such as Archax, to kind of reshape how an entire commodity, in this case, how an entire commodity market operates. So the short answer is what we do at Trilitech is sort of demonstrate the power of building on Tezos and obviously Etherlink as the layer 2 in driving the future of digital business models. That's kind of how I would summarize it. But again, caveat that with I'm 2 weeks and 2 days into the role.
Well, welcome to the team. So Arthur, to you, can you talk a little bit about how Uranium IO actually utilizes Tezos's blockchain technology to facilitate fractional ownership and trading of physical uranium through the XU308 tokens?
Yeah, so what the chain represents is a ledger of beneficial ownership in uranium held by in an account so there's a trust account at Cameco, which is this big depository in Canada, and the beneficial ownership of that trust is represented as a ledger on the chain. So one thing to important, it uses blockchain technology, it uses Etherlink, it uses Tezos. It's not a crypto product. It's not a crypto token, it's not a crypto coin or anything like that. It is beneficial ownership of uranium. You have a title to a piece of physical uranium through this thing. And the benefit is that it's a great platform to build this, because you naturally have a network of custodians, who have the ability to store this type of tokens. You have a network of exchange which has the ability to list those tokens. Obviously we're early, and those integrations, they need to come in place. But it's this like plug and play ability that you have from chain that I think is extremely valuable. Like you basically can tap into this entire network of actors who basically speak the same language. So it is interoperability between businesses and between different type of services, financial services in the world, that is extremely attractive from this point of view. Technically speaking, so it is built on, as we mentioned, Etherlink, which is a roll-up on top of Tezos. So it benefits from the stability of the Tezos layer 1, and it is EVM compatible, which also lets us access, a lot of the tooling and a lot of the infrastructure that exists around EVM solutions.
And so, one question for you, Ben, and I think Arthur, you mentioned a couple of these partnerships earlier, but what is the kind of point of bringing in partners like Curzon, Uranium, Cameco, and Archax, and I guess what are the strategic benefits of bringing them in for the Tezos ecosystem broadly, and how do they contribute to this, to strengthening the tokenized RWA market?
I mean, like Curzon, Uranium. Was it for me? So for Ben.
Feel free to go ahead, Arthur. I think it was. I can add to that as well, but you can start.
All of these questions, I have a person written for them, but if anyone wants to chime in and add to that,
you can say more about it. But broadly speaking, they are one of the biggest actors in the uranium trading space, and so they have a wealth of knowledge and experience in the space. And if anyone understands the need for electronic markets for uranium, it's them. And so like tapping into their expertise and their networks in terms of accessing the different parties interested in trading uranium is of course extremely valuable and useful for this project. But I'll let Ben answer.
Yeah, sure. Look, I think that's absolutely the kind of first point that I was going to make as well, right? Is what's crucial with something like this, given people will have lots of different connotations when they hear uranium purchase and uranium trading. So what was really important was credibility, right? So Curzon's a great example of that in the role they play in uranium, being a uranium broker, but also partners like Cameco and Archax. This is really about, unlike some other projects that have attempted this is about actually trading the physical uranium, and so ensuring that we can partner with firms that are within that sort of ecosystem and operating model to drive that's really important. So Archax being FCA regulated and the custodian and holding the nominee account with Cameco was super important. And Cameco themselves are one of only 3 converters globally where you can store physical uranium. So all of that just points to the credibility, and it's been a lot of years in progress and negotiations to get to this point. So that credibility points to first one. I think in terms of other strategic benefits, having partners that then, like Archax, that are integrated with Etherlink, and Benedict and team spent a lot of time working with the Archax team to push that forwards, also means the wider objective of having other projects that can launch like Uranium.io and leverage these partners that are already integrated brings strategic benefits generally. And I think, these partners that are regulated, that have gone through the process of engaging with regulators and then supporting the tokenization from a wider real world assets market perspective, it's really important to get them engaged in building and supporting these projects, because they're going to help bridge the gap between, folks like us that are trying to push in the frontier and do new things and make things like trading uranium more accessible, but ensuring that we get the balance right, and, for its sins, things like KYC checks are compliant, and bridging that gap between traditional markets and the way traditional markets operate, and bringing that in collaboration with us to sort of deliver new and innovative projects that can hopefully transform sort of outdated models as we would see it in the case of uranium trading that only trades OTC.
So to kind of build on that, and to you, Ben, as well, it sounds like obviously uniquely uranium has this problem of, the fact that no one's probably taking physical delivery of uranium, I would hope. It's incredibly expensive. There weren't great products to trade uranium. It wasn't accessible to the broader public. But how do you see, beyond uranium, other traditional commodities, in their role in the RWA space, and what role, if any, Tezos and Trilitech will play in that transition?
Yeah, look, I'm sure we all saw at the end of many people will have seen at the end of last year, the report in Cointelegraph that Trem Finance put out, right? That the market for real world assets is going to reach somewhere between 4 trillion and 30 trillion, depending on which analyst you listen to. So real world assets tokenization is not going away and is only going to grow. I think what's interesting is what we've seen in uranium. Uranium's a particularly acute case, but it's pretty common across lots of different commodity markets. If you think about other metals and things like that, they often are opaque and traded with limited liquidity, and hence you get kind of high volatility and high barriers to entry and high minimum lot sizes to trade that on a spot basis. So you're in a situation where you either need to be comfortable trading in the futures market and kind of operating with derivatives, or you need to have kind of high amounts of capital to access the spot market in many cases. So I think what we'll see is more traditional commodities being launched on chain and driving that increased participation, which hopefully will then lead to increased liquidity, improve price discovery, and then reduce that volatility, making it more accessible for the individual investor as well. In terms of what we can do at Trilitech, I think we're going to continue to support and grow projects looking to launch these types of assets on chain in a similar way to what we've done with Uranium.io. And I think, lots of people have lots of great ideas, and certainly already, I've had lots of conversations about glacial rock flower and water rights and things like that. But what they're lacking oftentimes is people, and partners and world-class engineers and other things like legal insight that we can bring, not just through this experience with Uranium.io, but just generally across the group. So I think that creates an exceptional foundation for these projects to be successful using Tezos and the Tezos ecosystem and Etherlink as well, specifically, as we've done with Uranium.io.
So Benedict, a couple questions for you more on kind of the technical infrastructure and developer experience side of things. And I know Arthur maybe, kind of hit on this a little bit earlier, but, what are the key features of Uranium.io's smart contract architecture that ensures secure and efficient transactions for users? And how does Tezos' infrastructure support its scalability as it aims to democratize access to the uranium market?
I mean, I would say it's just the traditional security that you get out of blockchains. So one thing that's a bit interesting that doesn't come with most tokenization projects is that most tokenization project will just have a token, and it sits on a chain. It doesn't really do something. You have a transfer agent that sometimes moves the token from one place to another, but people don't really take custody of it. Interestingly, here you actually have a way of exchanging the token on the chain, so you can swap it for USD. So people can people can trade the token directly using the chain to facilitate that. And typically, that's a type of experience that's associated with DeFi. So it's not it's not defined in the sense of like it is it is permission. So every wallet that holds the Uranium token has to be KYC. It has to be verified. That's part of the regulation around specific to Uranium. But the point is, like, once that's done, you are basically in a world where, hey, now I can go on chain and I can buy it and sell it, and that's like you get this convenience, and that's only the start. The point is you can build other smart contracts that can connect to it. So it could be borrow against it, it could be all the other things. So I think the idea is to bring this type of DeFi-like experience, but to realize that the point of finance that it has to finance something. So instead of like DeFi financing more finance, so it's like non-circular DeFi in some sense. But yeah, in terms of the benefit of the chain, there's been a ton of work going on for the scalability of Tezos. I don't think that it's not like today's demands on the on the trading for Uranium or like straining the scaling of Tezos, but it's very important for actors to know that this is credible. This is not something that's going to fold the minute that you have a little bit of load on the network. We see oftentimes blockchains are the victims of their success. There's just too much activity and they crumble under it. So lots of work over the past few years has gone into making sure that Tezos was extremely scalable. That's part of the Tezos X roadmap. So the point is, Etherlink is to grow and evolve into this very scalable rollup. I encourage people to read about it on the Tezos.com website. But generally speaking, we demonstrated over 2 years ago the ability to do 1 million transactions per second across multiple rollups on Tezos. And our next build milestone will be to achieve that in a single rollup. So tons of like really good work going on the scaling side from the core teams.
Benedict, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I think a question kind of broadly for you, which is, obviously with this launch, I'm sure there are going to be lots of other people that are interested in bringing projects to Tezos. And so, what developer tools and resources exist to support the development and maintenance of platforms like Uranium.io? And, how do these tools kind of simplify the process for enterprise developers?
So yeah, when building Uranium.io, we actually used, I would say, battle-tested technology. So we for the smart contract that actually hosts a token, we are using an Open Zeppelin extended ERC20 contract. So there's been extensive security audits being done on the smart contract before any extensions or changes were made, and then we actually got like a second opinion on security of the smart contract. It's ERC20, the standard, along with permissioning to ensure that only basically wallets that have been KYC'd can actually transfer the token. And then going through that, we also used we're leveraging like PancakeSwap, also battle tested DEX technology to actually perform the trades on app.uranium.io. Which gives us sort of like the combination of security, reliability, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel where it's not needed. And looking more into like the developer tools, there's with Etherlink there's tons of support from the EVM ecosystem. We've built like great relationships with the teams at ThirdWeb to help us integrate like over 350 wallet providers on top of like social login wallets that make it super easy for Web2 users who just want to invest into Uranium to go on the dApp and start basically going through the KYC process. We work with like reputable partners like Transact for the on and off ramp. As well as like SumsUp to facilitate the KYC process. And that's been super helpful, sort of like working with still young but also established players in the field that helped us build this from scratch in a very, very short amount of time, yet adhere to like performance and security standards that we set ourselves to.
And so, Arthur, to you, and I think you kind of alluded to this earlier, but I'd love for you to kind of expand your thoughts here on like, we haven't really seen huge adoption of RWAs yet. Like we've started to see, obviously you have tokenized treasuries like today, Hashnote sold to Circle, and, their USYC product has, grown to, I think $1 billion plus in market cap. And there's been some adoption, but it really isn't fully here yet. And so what do you think drives that wave of adoptions? And when it comes, what do you kind of, view as being kind of the unique challenges to scaling, user adoption to tokenized RWAs? And how do you think you guys are kind of, positioned to solve a lot of those problems and onboard these users?
Yeah, so, as you mentioned, some RWAs have had a lot of success. I think the most successful one has been stablecoins, but it's been mostly for a payment perspective, DeFi, trading. It's really the usage of it as opposed to like, ooh, interesting asset, I shall hold it.
Yeah.
I think treasuries is almost in the same category. I don't think it's like, a convenient way for me to hold treasuries is people are trading in and out of like crypto, but now that the yields are higher,
yeah, I feel like it's like if you're a crypto and you're holding stable coins to trade, why not hold treasuries instead? Kind of.
Exactly. But that being said, why not hold like a yielding DeFi position? That part is a little to me. I say sometimes like the way I think of it is like you can think of two categories of people willing to touch crypto and people not willing to touch crypto regardless of the assets. And if you're willing to touch crypto, you have all these opportunities. And if you're not, then you don't. And so sometimes you can bring if you bring an asset, you say like I'll tokenize something and it pays like a 5% yield, and people say like, well, I'm either willing to do crypto, and if I am, then I'm getting 20% yield somewhere. That makes the selling point a little harder. I think you need a few things. One is that you want lack of ability somewhere else. I think that helps a lot. People have been tokenizing gold, I don't know how many times on blockchains, and I think the reason they were tokenizing gold is they thought, well, there's an impedance match, like the type of people who buy, like Bitcoin and crypto assets, maybe they also like to hold gold, but there's just so many ways you can hold gold. Like, you could hold physical gold yourself, you can buy gold in a vault, you can buy an ETF. There's a plethora of options available for you if you want to hold gold. So it's nice to have it on chain, but you're competing with a lot of offering. Same thing if you tokenize real estate, very nice, but there's also opportunities to invest in real estate. There's REITs, there's all of that exists out. So I think you want like a bit of the exclusivity of it. And today is the only electronic marketplace, where like globally accessible marketplace where you can trade like in small size for Uranium, or even in any other size is today only selling. It's today Uranium table. It's the only one in the world. So that's a good advantage. The second thing is you want a bit of an impedance match. Like you want a type of people who are comfortable using this technology to also be interested in the assets. And I think like from that perspective, what do you find in the crypto space? You find people who like to buy assets which have high volatility, and historically, like Uranium has been high volatility assets. You want to buy people who have generally like a technologically positive bias. So these people also like predisposed to like Uranium. People who have purchases that also kind of reflect on who they are. So there's a little bit of like self-actualization through the assets. So you get all that from Uranium. And there's very few assets which I think have like all of these benefits. There's more. I think you can go beyond Uranium, but I think it was ideally suited for tokenization. And it's very strange to me that no one pushed it before.
No, it's funny you mentioned that because I mean, you've been in this space longer than I have, but I've been in crypto, I don't know, 8 years plus at this point. And the tokenized gold thing, to your point, has been around forever and it just has not caught wind. So it makes sense. And why do you think, what are you guys kind of building at Tezos, or kind of how are you approaching, maybe this comes from the foundation, or maybe this is more from the Trilitech side, but how do you guys think about kind of approaching the space and bringing on more of these projects? And maybe Ben, that's a you question, but I'll leave it open to kind of everyone, beyond just commodities.
Sure. Like naturally with I think commodities present enough opportunities to go after. And as we've talked about before, a lot of the characteristics, which I agree with that Arthur's outlined, fit some of the more esoteric commodities that have had phenomenal returns and drive important industries that are going to be important for the future, but most investors can't access them. And you know, we've got a lot to do with Uranium.io as well. But I think, you know, you asked me about other assets. I think the characteristic and set of criteria that Arthur outlined is really important, and that naturally, you know, I come from a TradFi background, leads you to asset classes again where, you know, there's high barriers to entry, there's kind of limited accessibility, and it's particularly the reserve of institutional investors. So, you know, infrastructure investing, particularly if you think about things like green projects, like solar farms and the like, you know, typically they require commitments of millions of dollars. Again, you know, there's no reason, as long as you've got that traceability, you couldn't do a similar thing in terms of fractionalization. So I think that can apply to things like impact and venture as well. But you know, and we know that there's demand on the other side, and you know, people in the TradFi space have been trying to do this. But I think the technology, the advantage that we have, kind of using blockchain and Tezos in particular, of course, I think could be really helpful in moving the dial in that regard. I think you asked sort of how sort of Trilitech and we're thinking about this. I think it's early stage, but you know, all the points that we've talked about today make it, if you're going to try and create a new market or broaden access to a market, you want to ensure that that's secure, it's robust, you're having, you know, close to 100% uptime, and it's scalable. And I think in all of those instances, you know, it's objectively clear that sort of Tezos ticks a lot of those boxes and all of those boxes. And you know, as we talked about in one of the previous questions, I think Trilitech can support in terms of, you know, bringing other partners together, you know, and there's a thriving ecosystem of talent and partners that can make these tokenization projects successful. And I think that's sort of where we see, certainly from my perspective, sort of opportunities going forwards.
And, you know, another part of this is obviously, you know, regulation. And so in light of global regulatory initiatives like the HKMA's Project Ensemble, for anyone listening, Hong Kong Monetary Authority, and the Monetary Authority of Singapore's Project Guardian, you know, to you, Ben, but I can leave this open for everyone, you know, how do these partnerships, you know, position you to collaborate with regulators and contribute to the development of you know, more compliant blockchain solutions?
Yeah, I'll go first, and then, you know, Benedict and Arthur, I'm sure, will have views as well if they want to chip in. But in short, I think it's a recognition that kind of this is where the future of the markets is heading, and the regulators are trying to take a different stance. You know, in addition to the two that you've mentioned in Project Ensemble and Project Guardian, the FCA here in the UK have got the Digital Securities Sandbox as well. I think they're looking to try and close the gap between, you know, project innovation and regulatory requirements. What we've done with Uranium.io kind of has clear benefits for the investors that most regulators care about the most, right? The individual investor. And so having these programs enables proactive engagement. And we partner with a regulatory compliant custodian in Archax. So we didn't necessarily use these programs for this project, but it does enable you to ensure that you aren't burning a lot of time building solutions and capabilities that don't meet the necessary regulatory requirements or can't fit into evolving regulatory frameworks. Sort of, you know, I just think it's a great opportunity to participate, but there's always a natural and sort of healthy tension between these projects looking to innovate and kind of move the client experience and access forward, and existing market infrastructure and regulators who tend to be a bit more methodical in their approach. So partnering up early, sort of, in theory, should help move the dial a little bit. I think it's been more academic and theory based right now. So I think I'm looking forward to seeing the next phase of projects that have been through these engagement programs actually coming to market and demonstrating that there is a route to getting that balance right.
So a final two questions, and I'll leave these open to all of you guys. Maybe we can start, maybe Arthur first, Benedict second, then Ben third on these two questions. My first question is, you know, this is broader crypto, not just Tezos focus, but, you know, what major developments do you expect and are you excited for the overall crypto market in 2025?
That's a good question. You know, the year is, you know, it's a very degen start of the year so far. So we'll see.
And a year in crypto is 10 years in anything else too. So predicting what's going to happen in December isn't necessarily the easiest thing either.
Yeah, it's true. You know, I think, you know, my my hope every year is the same, that we see more of the applications that matter, and less of the one that don't, and more of the applications that change the world for the better.
It's a great start of the year with Trump and Melania meme tokens.
It's high in entertainment, that's for sure.
Fair.
Cool. Yeah, I think from my perspective, we've seen it now launch like AI agents that actually, really help facilitate sort of like, what I want to do with crypto, making it easy and accessible, and sort of like, helping integrate potentially different apps, opening up new use cases. There's a good potential this will grow this year substantially. And yeah, I'm looking forward to just seeing how we're navigating sort of like the difficulties for people who are new to crypto. Move their money or move their assets from A to B with like so many different chains and tokens. It's become really difficult for new people entering the space to actually know what they're doing. So I think we need to improve the user experience and make it easy for people to understand what they're trying to achieve, and just help them do that rather than giving too many options.
Sure, I'll take a slightly different tack in terms of what sort of expectations for the year. In terms of, I think it was really interesting. Maybe that's an insight into my nerdy mind, but from a reg perspective, I think not just the US and obviously the changes that have been mooted there, but also in the EU, things like MiCA coming into force in December. Actually what that means practically for the market is still unknown. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that moves through and what that means in terms of project launches and things. We're having MiCA compliant white papers and the stuff, and actually how that works. And from a wider market participation perspective, I think we're just going to see a continuation and an acceleration of the trend of wider institutional and professional investor adoption, right? Not least attracted by the ever increasing Bitcoin price as it is right now. It's great how that's driving awareness of the potential of what's going on in the Web3 space and blockchain technology. But I think my expectation is, coupled with increasing RWA adoption as well, I hasten to add, but I think we're just going to see that a lot of institutional and professional investors, I think we're already seeing it, but I expect it to accelerate it, are going to recognize that actually, digital assets, crypto is something that they can't avoid anymore. And it's something that needs to be embraced rather than kind of shunned off to one side. And so I think that's going to drive it. And I think my hope, I'm not sure we'll see it, but my hope is that we'll see some of these institutional investors moving beyond using traditional rails for investing in digital assets, and actually try and adopt some of that infrastructure themselves to enhance what's going on. It's been sort of very skunk works like at the moment, but I hope there's broader adoption of that. And so that's my hope for the next 12 to 24 months, that we see more of these projects coming out of internal silos and being adopted more broadly across the industry.
So please, Noah, please.
Because like for Uranium, we really set up a template on how to do this, and it is I think it's a great asset, and it has whole workflows on its own. But on top of that, we now have a pattern where we can do it with more assets, and bringing a lot of these assets on chain, and essentially like also working at the interaction between those assets of like all the different things that people can do with those, as opposed to just saying like, well, now you hold it. So that I think is going to be quite interesting.
So
not sure if it will be a trend in crypto or specific to Tezos or Etherlink, but at least specifically in Tezos and Etherlink, I'm looking forward to that.
So my final question kind of plays into that as well a little bit, which is, and again, we can go maybe same order or reverse it, whatever you guys want, whoever wants to hop in first. But kind of what is your vision for RWAs? Like when you kind of close your eyes and envision what the RWA space looks like a year from now, a few years from now, what do you think it actually kind of practically looks like? Where does Tezos kind of play into that? And then any key takeaways from this conversation that you want to highlight as well?
I think you have to play to the platform's strengths, right? People have focused primarily on primary issuance for real world assets, even though blockchains really shine for trading. People have focused on custody through transfer agents, even though blockchain shine for self-custody and or at least networks of custody and ease of transfer. So I think you need to lean into the platform's strengths if you want RWAs to be successful. And that's I think that's the type of thing that we're going to be doing.
Yeah. From my perspective, my vision is really tied to Uranium.io. I think, looking forward, what we want to achieve here is by this year, and that's where the vision is, like really seeing how Uranium can mature as an asset on our platform, but overall, I think we want to see how we can actually positively affect the asset for the industry as a whole, beyond the DApp, and expand the playbook as Arthur mentioned earlier to other assets as well. Like there's opportunity here, and we are actively looking out for where our playbook applies.
Yeah, it's quite hard going last after that. I think I kind of, short of saying I agree with everything that's come before, I think, all of the above, certainly Uranium.io in terms of vision, it's great that we're launched, but there's a lot of work to continue to drive that adoption. And I think, broadening liquidity in that market kind of has numerous benefits, and that means different things, right? Of course, Uranium.io is the primary place to do it, but I envision terms 12 months from now, I expect Uranium kind of as a tokenized real world asset to be traded in different venues as well to sort of support that. And would absolutely love to have one, if not two, kind of additional assets using that playbook and that template that we've built that is regulatory compliant, that is, ticks all the boxes that it needs to meet for a variety of reasons, launched as well. And that enables us as a broader vision, as Arthur said, to kind of support people accessing and doing lots of different things with copious amounts of real world assets that span different asset classes, not just commodities, albeit I get quite excited about commodities. I find them fascinating. So yeah, I think that's sort of how I think we're all saying the same things. So I won't labor the point too much longer.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys all for joining us. This was really great. I really liked it. I like, it's a really cool application of RWAs and bringing tokenized uranium. I was playing around with the Uranium.io website as you answer the final questions there. So, thanks again, everyone, for joining, Arthur, Benedict, and Ben. And be sure to check out, both Tezos and Uranium.io. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.